Dr. Dave, welcome back to another After Hours Clinic.
Andrew Lane, glad to be here.
Hey, you found an interesting article today. I was hoping you'd elucidate us because it sounds like good news for those of us that enjoy letting loose a little.
All right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the news goes through dry patches, and sometimes it's like this gift that keeps giving. And recently, cool news has just been like, salacious news, interesting medical news.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think a really fun article that answers a question that I've always kind of had in my mind to some degree. And I think it touches on two topics that I I think I'm uniquely passionate about in our practice that I think in a way that goes well beyond what most primary care practices do. And those two topics are exercise, which I'm sure I've talked about this to the point of boredom, and alcohol consumption.
Hmm.
So you've
Everyone
heard
wants
me.
to know, yeah, how much is too much?
Yeah, well, you've heard me talk about how I think, and I think the data supports this belief that exercise and cardiovascular fitness is probably the most important lifestyle habit for healthy longevity. On the flip side, we know that alcohol is like one of the absolute worst, lifestyle habits for longevity. Um, it's a we're Americans. We have a large drinking culture. It's almost a rite of passage. But the
For
truth
some
is,
people, it's a quality of life, issue. It's a health span issue, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, and quality of life can
or at
be.
least a mental health, issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and drinking goes through a spectrum, right? There's normal. Most people fall in the pattern of acceptable drinking. Maybe a little too much here and there. But that being said, there are a large number of patients that are silently struggling with alcohol, issues. It's not always obvious. It's not always the person that gets the DUI or the person that, shows up in the ER with liver failure. And when you think about, Andrew, I'm sure, I don't remember the last time you were at a proper doctor's office, but the last time you went in, if do you remember if they talked to you about alcohol at all, and if they did,
It's just on
how
the
did they do
questionnaire. It's on the questionnaire.
it?
It's like, how much do you drink? Yes or no? If so, how many drinks a week? Right.
Yep. Okay. Did you fill it out honestly when they asked you the questionnaire?
I think so, but it also varies greatly. Like what they really ought to ask is like, yeah, it'd probably be more helpful if they're like, here's what we define as like a concern. Have you been drinking at this level in the last year? If so, how many weeks in the last year have you had like this kind of concerning behavior? I mean, it's so easy when you go into the doctor and be like, I only had 4 drinks this week. I feel good.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I used to drink, I've never answered that thing honestly. I'm always like, yeah, I've never had more than four drinks in a sitting. That'd be crazy.
Yeah,
You
right,
know,
right.
and that's
I was
honestly
pouring them myself, and they were a little heavy, but
exactly. And that little questionnaire that the medical assistant does in 2 minutes before you see the doctor, oftentimes is the only time you'll talk about it,
yeah,
unless there's a big red flag.
yeah,
And again, a lot of people are underreporting. So, in our practice, much to our patients' chagrin, especially every new year, I check a test called a PEF on them, right? That's standard of practice. And for those who don't know, a PEF is a blood test that measures alcohol consumption, but not like a breathalyzer or like a blood ethanol level in the ER, which measures acute intoxication. This actually tells us whether or not you've consumed alcohol in the last 2 to 3 weeks and relatively how much. It doesn't tell us exact number of drinks, but by the number, we can tell if someone's a light drinker, a weekend warrior, someone who's maybe headed toward a problem, or someone who's, chronically drunk.
and this is a bit of a trailing indicator, right? Or it's an indication of kind of their average drinking in the last 90 days, 30 days,
No, no, 2 3 weeks,
two, three
two to
weeks.
three,
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah,
which is still way better than we.
yeah. But if you do that test in January, chances are, in late January, early February, chances are they're going to have pretty low levels. You do that test in November, it might be a different story.
Well, in general, if I have a positive test, I check it with every set of labs that
Nice.
I
Okay.
order.
Okay.
Just
Oh,
because,
you're saying once it's identified as a potential challenge for a patient, it's something that you keep a closer eye on.
yeah, I will check it once a year in everybody, and then people who have a
Reason
significant
to check more.
elevation, I'll just monitor it with their blood work because again, I think it's something that people they really minimize. I mean, and because in our culture we're kind of taught to minimize it, right? I think of college culture, like don't be a pussy, have another beer, drink beer upside down from a keg.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a social expectation around it, right? Like if you're on vacation, or if you're at a conference, or if like my brother-in-law is visiting right now, and so when it feels a little vacationy because someone's visiting and they're not working, and you're like, oh, do you want a beer? And if he's having one with dinner, I want to have one with dinner, and it's
Yeah.
you
No, I feel bad every holiday now that I don't drink because like Janarius is for those who don't know, we are like the Irish of the Indian people. Like we're Catholic and we drink a lot. And I was never a fall down drunk or anything, but I will 100% admit that I was one of those binge drinker, weekend warrior types, pretty hard. And at some point, just because of what I do and because I understand how just corrosive alcohol is to the body, heart failure, early dementia, 13 different types of cancer,
wow.
and in my mind, I wanted to set a better example for my kids. But it's funny because every time it's a holiday, I feel like I'm kind of like bringing down the mood a little because everyone wants to crack that first drink and they're kind of waiting.
But what an inception! What a insidious thought that like is not unique to you, right? It's like many of us have had that thought of like, oh, like I better help lighten the mood. Like, I better have a drink. I don't want someone to think I'm
Yeah,
a Debbie Downer. Yeah, I mean, I want to point out that none of those health effects have been studied in people who are retired and own wineries in Greece or Italy, or Provence or something. But for the rest of us that live normal lives, alcohol can be pretty negatively impacting.
yeah. Now again, and I like to highlight, like I'm not here just to bag on alcohol. Everyone has something, right? Like I don't drink, but I eat like a couple quarts of ice cream a week or something, like I mean everyone has their thing that's not so great. So
A couple quarts
what's
of high fructose corn syrup and heavily processed dairy, sure.
yeah, so and in my mind, honestly, as you know, like I've always been since I was in middle school, someone who exercised every day. It's like brushing my teeth, tying my shoes. And I do think that has actually mitigated some of the bad things I've done in the past. And what's interesting is there's an article that the article we're going to talk about, and I'll chuck it on the screen, actually looks into the question like, hey, can you kind of mitigate the damage from alcohol with cardiovascular fitness? And this comes from a really high impact, hard hitting academic journal called the Gentleman's Quarterly. I'm not sure if you have ever read any of their publications, but really impactful. And this article entitled "What's Best for Longevity: Working Out or Not Drinking" looks at a recent publication, and I believe it's in the Journal of Sports Medicine, that looked at the question: Can cardiovascular fitness actually reduce the mortality impact that alcohol has on populations? So the actual study, I'll chuck the actual study on the screen so that we can look at it together and kind of go over how it
Yeah, I want to know
was.
how many minutes of my Peloton do I need for each drink?
Yeah. Let me see if I got the right one here. Boom. Okay, this is it. So the the original article is called "Running from Death: Can Fitness Outpace Alcohol's Harm?" And it is looking at alcohol intake, fitness, and all-cause mortality in the Hunt study in Norway. So the Hunt study is like kind of like our NHANES study
You know,
here in the
it's one of
U.S.,
these
which
large population studies that's followed over many
exactly.
years. People are doing interviews and surveys over the course of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they do is there's a population in a specific city that I won't even try to pronounce because it has like a O with a line.
Young.
But it follows this population and it checks in about every decade or so, and does surveys, collects health data, and follows them over time. And they'll do this every 10 years. So what they did in this study is they looked at the population in at two different time periods spaced like roughly 10 years apart, and they looked at their baseline drinking and exercise habits and their follow-up drinking and alcohol habits, in an attempt to ask the question: does having cardiovascular fitness reduce the risk of death from alcohol, just overall death from alcohol, not necessarily specifically caused by alcohol, but people who drink, as we said, higher risk of cancer, higher risk of heart attack. So, they basically this is kind of a bit of a busy slide. So I know, Andrew, you're great at helping me walk through this.
Yeah,
Um,
what's interesting to me is there was a phrase in the conclusion I want to ask you about, and maybe you could show me where you think it might be on the slide. The It said if you maintain a fitness level above the lowest 20% of your age and sex group, your age and gender, uh, then doing that attenuated the association between a change in alcohol intake and all cause mortality. What does that mean?
so great question.
What is this attenuation? This
Attenuation means to reduce the impact.
Okay.
So what they did is they took the population, and again, they put them in categories at those two different time points, and for fitness, they either they consider them fit if they were in the top 80% of fitness levels. And this was not like doing it in a lab. This is an estimated VO2 max based on like patient responses. So they are either deemed fit or unfit in the initial period. And then 10 years later, if they were fit, they either remained fit or became unfit, or if they were unfit, they either remained unfit or became fit, right? Those are your options. So, and I think I'll pull up the graph because it is a lot, and so I wanted to be able to break it down in a way that is intelligible, and also kind of explain how the study set up. Now, for alcohol, they classified people of one of three categories at each time point. They called them abstainers if they don't drink. They basically light drinkers if they drink within the recommended daily allowance of alcohol, or heavier drinkers if they drink above that.
Okay.
Now, you'll notice these are pretty binary cutoffs, right? Like it's not graded. It's like you're either super out of shape in that lower 20%, or you're like, in the top 80%, which includes people below average.
Yeah, it's an interesting distinction versus the alcohol consumption. They seem to have uh, created more gradation on that.
A little bit, but again, it's just based on grams per week.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
it's for men, it's 140 grams a week or less is light drinking, or 70 or less in women, and greater than 140 is heavy drinking for men, or greater than 70 is heavy drinking for women. And they followed the population, they categorize them again at baseline and observe the change. And this graph, what we have here in this really busy graph that I'm looking at, all the way on the very left in this writing here, this is their alcohol status at H2 is the initial time they checked them, and H3 is the follow-up time. So if you look at the very most bottom rows, these are people that didn't drink in either time period, whereas the row at the very top are people who are heavy drinkers in the first period and also heavy drinkers in the last period. Within, and making it even more confusing, within each classification of drinkers, they categorize their fitness from time period 1, which is called H2, to time period 2. So they were either fit and remained fit, they were fit and became out of shape, they were out of shape and became fit, or they were out of shape and they just stayed out of shape. And on the y on the x-axis, what we're looking at is something called a hazard ratio. A hazard ratio is just basically it is a way of calculating excess risk. So in this case, what they took as the reference population are the people that never drank and were always fit. We assume these are going to be the healthiest population, right? So the hazard ratio for that reference group is 1. So you see that little dot
Yeah,
here at
the bottom there. They're fit. They were always fit, and they were abstainers of alcohol. So
exactly.
they become the benchmark reference. Is that right?
Exactly. Now, if you look at people that did not drink but
Uh,
became unfit, their hazard ratio goes
I'm
up to
starting
3.
to see the pattern here. Okay,
Yeah.
we're starting to see. Okay, it took a minute,
Yes.
but
Now move one row up, and what you see is these abstainers, if they were out of shape and became fit, the hazard ratio
this is
is
the
basically.
unfit fit, the unfit H2 and fit H3.
Yeah. So when you see this line, this dot, this line is like basically a standard deviation. It's basically, if this line crosses this dotted line, what it means is it's not a significant result. So for all intents and purposes, in this category, the people who became fit were similar to people who are always fit.
Mm.
Now, and as you follow this trend up, you tend to see this. So the people who are in all categories of drinking, the people who are always fit, the lifelong fitness people, always the lowest hazard ratio in any group. We tend to see a reduction, an increase in hazard ratio for people who become out of shape, and a slightly reduced hazard ratio in people that, with the same alcohol consumption, who
What
became fit.
What's crazy here is the people who appear to be at the worst risk are people who were not always out of shape, but who became out of shape.
Yeah.
People who had a marked decrease in their fitness.
Well, there are, and I want to make this quite clear. This is not like a randomized control trial where we take people who have drinking, patterns and assign them to like an exercise program or a
But
non.
it is 25,000 healthy adults.
Yes, but it's still observational, which means the
Mm.
problem you run into is you can only really get correlation. You
Okay,
can't
that's
really
fair.
get
That's fair.
causality. And where
Yeah.
you see this, this is a kind of an interesting aberration. If we go to group number 3, these are people who are modest drinkers that quit drinking. And interestingly, if you look at the people that all of a sudden stopped drinking and started getting fit, their mortality increases substantially. And we obviously know that quitting drinking and exercising is not going to cause you to die. So what that tells me is these people probably had something occur in that 10 years where they had to stop drinking, where
I
they
see.
had to
And
start
then they
doing.
had to start focusing on their fitness.
Exactly. And when we
And
say fit is only top 80%, that's not even that much of a jump, right?
yeah.
So again, there are caveats to this, but big picture, if you look at all of them, across all of them, they all hold the pattern where people who are lifelong fitness people have the lowest hazard ratio for any group of drinkers, right? And for the most part, becoming fit does seem to mitigate some of the impact of alcohol that we would see in, for example, people who were always unfit. So we had the most extreme case in the top, right, where you have heavy drinkers at both time periods.
Yeah.
And again, when you look at people and the heavy drinkers who were fit at both times, again,
Such a
this
small difference.
Well, the hazard ratio, again,
And,
because it
and the,
crosses that midline,
yeah,
it's not significantly different
right.
than people who are essentially non-drinkers.
Yeah.
But we do
And that,
see,
that also is true of the people who became unfit to fit in the high drinker category.
yes, there was,
It
uh,
crosses one.
exactly, slightly more signal because it's a little bit more to the right. But again, when it crosses one, it does not reach statistical significance.
Yeah.
And then, again, we see that pattern for people who get out of shape. Their hazard ratio goes up quite a bit. And, the unfit people also.
It almost seems like what you're saying, it almost seems like there's this trend here of like within the data set that is available here, within the analysis that's available here, it's not super clear. It's not super. It doesn't necessarily show that you have to be at the highest fitness level. But what's critical is that your fitness level is not in decline.
Yes. I think that would be the biggest take home is lifelong fitness the
Okay.
seems to be preventative. I mean, that
Yeah.
holds across all strata of
But also
drinkers.
being lazy for 40 years and then picking it up is also pretty good.
Yes, it's better than nothing.
Like getting started today is pretty darn good compared
Yeah.
to never getting started or
Just don't quit drinking at the same time or you'll die early. I'm just kidding. But again, that has to do with the fact that you cannot make conclusions. You can only make correlations really from this data. But I do think it does. It the numbers, particularly with the lifelong fitness group, it jives. It jives with what we know about the profound, mortality benefit of, people with high levels of fitness. So I don't think this is, obviously doesn't completely absolve you, especially if you're a really heavy drinker. But that being said, yes, it's like with any medical condition, right? Like if a person comes in and has high blood pressure, a lot of times the ideal thing would be for them to start exercising, to eat a lower sodium, higher potassium diet, to lose weight and get rid of their blood pressure that way. But at a population level, we know not everyone's going to have the bandwidth for that, right? So what do? We patch it up with a blood pressure medication. Yeah, I mean, could you patch it up with some physical fitness? Why not? Just don't do it while you're drunk. That's my thought on this. I think it's good news. I think it's a late Christmas gift for all of my. I'm going to send this to my problem child.
I love it. I love it.
Because again, it
There's
from
hope
the
for everyone
limited.
here.
Now, what would be really fascinating is if they were actually to do a better system of gradating alcohol consumption as well as physical fitness, right? I mean, because above, the recommended allowance of, whatever it is, 2 drinks a night could mean 3 drinks a night, or it could mean 10 drinks a night, right?
We
Being
need greater, we
physically,
need greater resolution in that, and the same with the fitness as well.
yeah,
It's really
exactly.
unclear. It's really unclear to me what is the health benefit. What's the most? Where is the health benefit the greatest? Is it under? Is health benefit the greatest when your body is constantly being challenged to a higher level, or is your health benefit equally as good or better if you achieve a high level of VO2 max as a measure, for example, and then stay there? Like, is plateau always bad no matter how high you get? And is strain really the issue?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think, I mean, everyone's VO2 max is going to decline given enough time.
Right,
Um,
I guess I'm sorry. Let me try to phrase this differently. What I think I'm asking a coherent question, or at least positing a coherent difference here. Like the idea being that like there's not necessarily a perfect level of fitness, but the data seems to suggest like striving for better fitness is kind of the ultimate
well,
utility here.
there was a study that was done, I think, in around 2020, I want to say, in Sweden, where they actually did look specifically at the question of gradation of VO2 max, specifically VO2 max. It wasn't like an estimation like it is here. They looked at their VO2 max and compared it to all-cause mortality following them, over a
Yeah.
decade or whatever it was. And what they found was they broke it into quintiles from lowest to highest. And as you went up the quintiles, there was a decline in mortality with no nadir, meaning like as your fitness went up, you just lived longer. Like a lot of things in life have like what we call like a U-shaped curve, right? Like with
Mm,
weight loss, right? A little bit of weight loss good, too much is bad, right? But exercise, like fitness, not necessarily exercise volume, but cardiovascular fitness did not seem to have an upward threshold. So I would be willing to bet that if we were to actually break these people down more, into more discrete categories based on fitness and alcohol, we would see a lot more interesting trends. And yeah, it would be interesting to see, where's because then the reference hazard ratio probably would then be the fittest population who are non-drinkers, and then we could look at the people that are the extreme heavy drinkers but like super fit, and where does their that's going to be a very small portion, and that's the only thing. It's going to be hard to find
yeah.
people that put in work on both ends like that, but I'm sure you can find it in professional sports. But yeah, I mean, and other than this, I just like on a personal note, for me, honestly, like I think I have the makeups for someone who could be an alcoholic. Like I'll be in full disclosure. I think I had my first drink at like 10, started getting drunk with friends at like 12, 13. Like I was one of those people that
These
just
are some
liked it.
these are some factors stacked against you here.
Yeah, but
Early exposure, repeated exposure. Um, yeah.
and just liking it. But again, I never developed a
Honey,
serious,
man, you
serious.
get on semaglutide, you'll stop liking things. It's great.
Well, but for me, exercise was my semaglutide because
Yeah, yeah,
if I were ever to go like, if I were ever to find myself drinking too much, that it's impacting my ability to exercise, to me, it was always no question. Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
drinking has to go, like the exercise stays. Because, and so I think one good habit, particularly one that is so fundamental and so rewarding as fitness, I think tends to stack habits. It is hard to get excited about eating a salad. you know, it's hard to get excited about getting an extra 30 minutes of sleep a night. But when you crush a workout goal, when you start to get defined muscles, and you look good without a shirt on, and that is
Your
inherently just
wife admires your body.
exactly.
Yeah,
Uh, you
yeah.
know,
No, this is
so
good. This is promising news, and yeah, I feel like there's a few good messages wrapped up in here. But, one of them is the power of fitness, and the other one is that redemptive quality that I don't know. I particularly feel really drawn to is this redemptive quality of like it's never too late, like
yep,
to get going
yep, exactly,
and
exactly.
to enjoy a share of many of the benefits of um, I mean, this data doesn't say that specifically, but it does seem that you can. It's almost a little unfair the way that some of these benefits seem to accrue to people who didn't spend their whole life doing it, but can jump in at any time and claim some of these
And to
health
be
benefits.
to be quite honest, I think this vastly underestimates the impact of that later on exercise. Because remember, when they go from unfit to fit, they're making the jump from maybe bottom 19th to top 79th.
Yeah,
It's not a huge jump. But and again, it's confounded by all kinds of. We saw that kind of directionality where, hey, why are they quitting drinking? Why are they exercising? Maybe it's because they were sick. The point being is I think that in real practice, the actual reduction in mortality is far more pronounced if you're someone who starts later on but takes it serious.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Walking the rows of your vineyard in Tuscany
yeah, so basically
in
what I'm
between pizza breaks. Yeah,
exactly. So basically what I'm saying is while the world is like on fire, institutions are crumbling, and our like trust in humanity is like under attack. It's nice to have like a win.
Yeah, yeah, it is good. It is good. So yes, you can run from death, and you should get started. Get running.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
good. I love it. I love it. We'll have to add this to a
I,
newsletter.
I remember once I saw that when I was at a wrestling camp when I was like 16 years old. And I remember some guy had a sweatshirt that I thought had a cool saying on it. I don't know if this is trite, but the saying was this. It says, every morning, a lion wakes up and knows that in order to survive, it has to outrun the slowest gazelle. In that same jungle or savannah, a gazelle wakes up and knows it has to outrun the fastest lion if it's going to survive. So it doesn't matter whether you're the lion or the gazelle. When the sun comes up, you better be running.
You better be running.
I love that. I
I was hoping for the gazelle's sake that the message was you just have to outrun the slowest gazelle. But I prefer the other story of, like two guys, some apocryphal story of like, guys looking at each other, a bear comes running after them, and how do you outrun a bear? And they're like, I don't have to, I just have to outrun you.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like when when you dive, it's like, hey, if you see a bull shark and it's coming at you, you get your dive knife, you stab your partner, and you bolt. Right? It's like,
I haven't heard that one. I haven't
yeah,
heard that one. We need a collection of these exact isms from around the world because I
yeah,
haven't heard that whole stab your partner, let the bull shark.
these sort of demotivationalizing statements.
Oh man, we're about to show my kids the movie Castaway. So
Oh, with Tom
with
Hanks.
Tom Hanks and Wilson and Wilson, the volleyball. So yeah, I think that might be at this weekend next week. It's coming up soon. It's been on our list for a little while.
Tom Hanks has like such a catalog for kids. Have they seen Big yet? Have you seen that movie Big from the 80s?
No, no.
You missed it. Yeah. So that
No.
was like,
I was
that's
too
like an
busy watching Full Metal Jacket and Lethal Weapon.
I think they came out around the same time, but
Yeah.
Big, your kids would love it. So Big is about basically a kid who wishes he was like an adult, so he wouldn't get bossed around by his parents or whatever. And he makes a wish at this like arcade genie, and it's granted. The little kid turns into Tom Hanks. So Tom Hanks is an adult in body, but with the mentality of a kid,
Yeah.
and no one recognizes him as the kid. Like his parents don't recognize him, his
So he's
friends.
basically Adam Sandler in every other movie.
Exactly. Yes, he is basically Adam Sandler before Adam Sandler was Adam Sandler.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tom Hanks invented Adam Sandler in that movie. It sounds like.
But it's like super heartwarming. There's no like preaching. There's no message. It's
Yeah,
just fun and
we've
silly.
stumbled on this. We've stumbled on this like Tom Hanks as a hack to watch like movies that might appeal to the grown-ups in the house while also being tolerable to young children. And
Oh, Forrest Gump.
yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah, probably.
I used to watch Forrest Gump. Like I used to make my mom watch Forrest Gump with me like at least once a week when I was in middle school. Like she
Wow.
watched that stupid movie, and I remember like having so many questions. Like, that part at the
Yeah, why
end.
is Jenny sick? Why is Jenny sick? What's up with that?
Well, actually, I asked the question like, "Hold on, does Forrest Gump have AIDS now, Mom?"
Yeah, yeah, wow. Um, yeah, that was nuts.
The answer, and I only because when you're a kid, you think
The
it's like
answer is Tom Hanks has AIDS, Forrest Gump does not.
exactly and that's how he developed AIDS in the movie Philadelphia, which is another
Right.
just classic. Um,
Oh man, I think we're gonna watch Apollo 13 as well.
Good one.
I think Apollo 13 feels a little more family friendly than Forrest Gump initially, but
Really, I don't think so. I think there's a lot more like silliness to Forrest Gump because kids
yeah,
don't understand the adult topics. Oh, that was one question that I really didn't understand. Remember, there was a part where like the principal sleeps with Forrest Gump's mom so he can be in the district school or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And like, there's a point where like Forrest Gump hears like the noises and he imitates them, and I'm like, "Mommy, what's he doing?" And my mom said she didn't know. So maybe,
I could totally hear your mom saying that too. Having met her many times, I feel like I
well,
know
it's,
the exact voice and look that would be on her face when she says that.
well, the funny thing is my mom always keeps it real. Like she was always very scientific about that stuff. So if I'd ask a question, she would generally answer it. So I suspect she may not have known what
She
that's
may not have understood the prepubescent boy
yeah.
like yeah, maybe your mom doesn't understand the trolley qualities of young boys. Um, that's fascinating. I know we've got another topic for our next episode. I'm excited
Yes.
about that. And
So excited. We're gonna be looking into the sort of critiques of the not the man but the work of Peter Tia, and give our input as to whether we should throw the baby out with the bathwater or maybe there's still something there to the actual.
well, before yeah, and don't forget we've also got speaking of babies and bathwater, we've also got listeria in pregnant women. So
Yes, we do. Thanks to RFK.
I think there's a lot of wisdom to dissect in the Maha movement, and I mean we see patients bring in ideas a lot, right? And you were just mentioning on last time we talked about how much you love it when patients are passionate about information and doing their own research, and that is great. It seems like there's a spectrum of that research that patients do. Sometimes it's just something they heard on an influencer's podcast. Other times it's maybe something they have gone a little deeper on WebMD, and I think that that'll be an interesting lens to kind of pick apart on the Maha subjects. Maha.
Yeah, I'm. There's going to be some vitriol.
Okay. Well, I gotta go get my raw milk, so I will.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you soon, Dr. Dave. Thank you so much.
it was a blast as always.
Cheers.
Cheers.